Okay, and starting out our posing and animation, what you want to do is actually have the idea in mind of how we're going to make this animation look. Okay, so usually animation is based off of a series of poses. And so what you want to think about is how the character is going to look as we pose our character. Okay, so in a standing idle pose, which is usually a basic idle, which most games have a basic idle, and that character just basically stands around and can either look or do a breathing or a little adjustment, weight shifts, such and such. But it's usually a good idea to have that basic pose in mind of what you're actually looking for. And so a lot of the time you can go to Google and just type in, if it's a male, okay, so just male and then idle pose, male idle pose, and then if you click on the images, and you'll get a bunch of different options, okay? And like one thing that you want to kind of look at is when you're looking at idle poses, you can see that his shoulders are pretty, there is a slight angle. It's kind of contrapposto. Contrapposto meaning that you get kind of an angle going this way, and then you have an angle going the opposite way. And so his hips are basically rotated down, and to this way. And then you also have, so it's actually opposite. So it's just kind of going like this and like this. And his feet are kind of spread apart. And he also has an angle to his feet that they're kind of open. And he's also looking down. His spine is actually, if you were to visualize this, it's like almost like the line of action is going like this. Okay, so it's kind of an S shape, but really kind of subtle. You want to, when you're looking at these poses, you really want to look at the line of action. Usually look at the hips, the shoulders, the way the spine is interacting, and then usually from there you can go out and look at the legs, what the legs are doing. The arms are fairly straight. The arms are kind of following along. And you can also see that there's this rotation as well. So the rotation is coming around. It's coming around this way. Okay? So he's actually, his left shoulder is a little bit more forward, at least in this perspective view shot. We can see that this left shoulder is a little forward, and this hip is kind of pushed backwards. And this one's kind of pulled a little forwards. And I would assume that this foot is a little forwards as well. So in this pose, we're just kind of looking at the way this the line of action in the pose looks, what that looks like. And you can go to others, just pull up other character designs and kind of try and find what they're actually doing. So we'll look at the hips first. Okay, so these hips do have a little rotation, just going this way. And then also the shoulders have just a slight, it looks like it's very slight. You can see it though. So one going this way and one going that way. So it's still contrapposto and not just straight on, okay? So you don't want to do straight lines. Nobody poses in straight lines. Sometimes when we're standing, you get some, you'll get somebody like, they'll shift their hips just a little bit, and then so their shoulders will actually like shift as well. So you really want to pay attention to those kind of things. They're real subtle, but they actually make animations look so much nicer and cleaner, and they just look natural. Okay, anything that is going to look like straight on, anything like that, any straights, it is okay to have some straights, but you definitely want more. You want to think about rotations and where those rotations, what are they doing, okay? So like you could actually move, so since his left foot looks like it's a little forward, I would almost like do a counter posture of bringing this right shoulder just a little forward, Okay, so that would push that back, and then so you're actually thinking about other, and this is pretty much a straight on line of action. There's not really too much line of action going on. There's a little bit. You can see this kind of shape going like so. It does have a little bit of curve to it, but nothing crazy. So if we look at some of the others, you can see contrapposto here as well. Well, not so much contrapposto. Well, I guess, yes. So like if you look at the way his clavicle is going that way and the hips are basically going down like that. And here likewise, okay, you can see in this image the way that these characters are standing. They're just standing like straight up, but they do have some curvature. Okay, there's some curvature going on. And you just need to think about that when you're actually posing, doing a base pose for a character, is that you want that contrapposto looking pose. So it's not just straight on like this. Straight arms, straights, so just way too many straights, okay? It doesn't look that good. This is just very straight and boring. So you want to really think about, as we are building our base pose, that we put some of that curvature into the areas. So even this, see how this has like a nice shape to his spine. So he's actually rotating back. So most people have that natural curve in their spine when they're standing, where you get somebody who's just kind of like laid back and lazy, right? You also want to think about the emotion you're trying to convey. If somebody's lazy, you'll notice that they just kind of slouch. Or if somebody is heroic, you know, chest out forward. You want to really think about those things when you're posing. And so yeah, you can see that here too, okay? There's a lot of information out here on the internet that is very helpful. So as you start thinking about posing, you really want to be thoughtful about that. See, this is another contrapposto, and this is another contrapposto. So you really want to think, you see it a lot in nature, is more contrapposto, using curves. Okay, you'll see a lot of people say use curves. So you definitely want to have that in your posing, okay? So with these arms too, like I would almost straighten that arm out and also just kind of fold the hands in too. It's what looks kind of looks natural and looks good to you. So I'll just show you. This is just kind of basically going over posing and how we want to think about those poses when we're building them up. And then animating is just basically setting key poses, and then we go to offsets and blending. In between, we have in-betweens and all that. So if we go back to the top, you can also do cartoon idle pose. Just kind of look for like what your character, what you want to actually think about when posing, is that we have a pose in mind that when we go to Maya or Blender or any of what software that you're using, that we are able to actually create that pose, visualize that pose as we are creating it. Okay, so if I jump over to Maya, and you can actually see that I kind of built this contrapposto pose into my character. Okay, he's just kind of like laid back, like so, and so we can go over that now, and I'll show you how to build that pose out. And so to do so, I want to start with a new scene. Okay, so I'm just going to say new scene, and from here, what I want to do is reference my rig. Anytime I'm going to do animation, I'm going to reference the rig, because if say you have a rigger and the rigger makes some changes to that rig, you don't want your animation breaking or anything like that. So using a reference will actually propagate down the line. Okay, so if there's any rig changes, you just are able to open up your animation file, and then you have a complete animation that still works, which is a great thing. So you want to create reference, and then we want to go and find our latest rig file, and we'll just say, actually, I just want to make sure that